In the mid-1980s, my husband and I, with 3 children, moved back to San Francisco from New York City, where we had been living. Both of us grew up in California, and we were happy to be headed home. Once settled in San Francisco, I was invited to be on the National Board of Environmental Defense Fund. And it wasn't because I was a well-known environmentalist, but rather because my husband had done very well on Wall Street. And there was some potential for generous giving. And one of the board members, actually some of you know, was a friend of ours and very persuasive in getting me to join an organization that I really didn't know much about. She said, "Sally, you want to go back to San Francisco and play tennis and sit at the pool and read magazines, or do you want to do something worthwhile with your life?" And she knew that I had never done anything outside of being a nurse, a tutor, a chauffeur, a cleaning lady, a laundress, and a caretaker for my family. But with 2 of the 3 children in or close to college and 1 in the 2nd grade, she assumed that I might have some time on my hands, and she was right. I accepted the invitation, and I said yes. So there are 2 things that are going to come up later in this story that I want you to remember. I had a wealthy husband, and that I said yes. So remember those 2 things. When one is a board member of a national environmental organization and regularly attends meetings, you get a brilliant education on what humans are doing to the planet. At least at EDF you do. Subjects like overfishing, deforestation, pesticides in fresh water, the dangers of asbestos, antibiotics, growth hormones that are fed to livestock, lead in paint and gasoline that was known to harm children, and even, at that time, too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Even then, in the 1980s, Michael Oppenheimer was talking about global warming, and I believed every word. I got engaged. I was then, and obviously still am, an Episcopalian. I wasn't a zealot, but I did attend regular service, and my youngest son was an acolyte. So I was a member of 2 communities, and I was devoted to both, EDF and the Episcopal Church. At one meeting, I'd be learning about that humans were destroying the earth. And at the other, people were praying for a reverence for the earth. But there were never prayers at the EDF board meetings, and there was never any discussion of the destruction that humans were causing to the earth in church services. So how could we, as parishioners, sit in a pew and profess a love for God, pray for a reverence for the earth, love our neighbors as ourselves, and let God's creation that God called good be destroyed? We could not. So stirring deeply in me was this question. So I took the question to the clergy at our church, and to our bishop, and to our cathedral, and to our neighbors who were Roman and Jewish, Presbyterians, and many other Protestant denominations. Nobody had ever heard a clergy person mention protection of creation from the pulpit. And I was surprised, knowing that I did, about the damage that humans were doing to God's creation. I thought people in the pews should know about it too, but the rector at my church suggested that I go to seminary and find out about the disconnect between what we say we believe in and our behavior. He thought I should go to seminary rather than he mention this new and maybe hot subject. So I said yes, and the wealthy husband paid for it. But not so fast. I had never been to college, so once I found out that you cannot set out to earn a master's degree without an undergraduate degree, I had to go to 4 years of college. I was 45 years old. It was a challenge, but it was really fun, and I inhaled the education. It was a Jesuit college, because that's what the University of San Francisco is. I graduated 4 years later, 1989, and even more determined to tell people in the pews that humans were destroying the planet. We were hypocrites, sinners, and worse. But with seminary on the horizon, and I had told Bishop Swing, who some of you may remember because he was here for many years, In fact, I owe him, he had the courage to actually ordain me, which I think there were many that would not have done it. But I had told Bishop Swing that I was not going to seminary because that I was intending to be ordained or looking at holy orders. I wanted to put, he asked me to put earth care aside for the time being and just study the theology. Where was the disconnect between what we say we believe in and the way we behave? And I didn't think that I would ever be in a pulpit, and I really wasn't interested in that role. Nobody at that time had ever been ordained to do ecological work. Prison, hospital chaplains, but no chaplain for creation care work, and really no ecological ministry at all. So from 1990 to 1994, I studied theology, and I made further progress in understanding why no one mentioned the environment from the pulpit. The call to be stewards of creation is throughout most religious teachings, but until very recently, it has not been taught in seminary. There were no courses in environmental ethics, no focus on the fact that God put Adam in the garden to till it and to keep it. We were placed here to be the gardeners, and why didn't anybody see that or pay attention to it? It certainly is in Scripture, but one has to find it and shine a light on it, or otherwise it was just skipped over. So once I graduated from seminary, I started a committee to explore an environmental ministry in the Diocese of California. Now I had a master's degree, and I felt qualified to chair such a committee, and the bishop supported it. An important thing to note at this point that once I entered college and then on to seminary, I was a changed person. I started to have opinions, thought out, studied opinions, and they turned out often to be in opposition to my husband. The more educated I became, the more I found that we had different values, and the more difficult it became to live in harmony, something that is quite obviously important for a marriage. It's important for any healthy relationship. So I found myself single, which in the long run was probably a good thing because it allowed me to move forward aggressively and working to engage people of faith in stewardship of creation. The committee that was formed to engage the Diocese of California in environmental awareness, the people that were on this committee, put a lot of pressure on me to explore the ordination process. And this is what I had told Bishop Swing that I wasn't interested in doing. I was reluctant and I resisted for another 2 years. But the idea took hold, and as much as I wanted to say no, I said yes. And I got into the process. In 1997, I was ordained to the priesthood, but not before I had spent an additional 3 years as a seminarian in a small Episcopal church in Marin County.